This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USAPrepares.com, and we're broadcasting live high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. And there's a link to all of your instructors on the website, USAPrepares.com. Shayne's at the controls in Minnesota, producing the worldwide broadcast at the world headquarters of Genesis Communications Network. Hot weather, record highs, absolutely. And, you know, it's the weather has been so damp here in the Ozarks that our neighbors are asking to borrow our herd of cows. Never happened before. Borrow our herd of cows to mow down the 2-foot, 3-foot tall grass in their woods because the grass is out of control for right now. But that situation is going to change very, very shortly. And we're going to get our cows back this afternoon right after the broadcast. So I'm welcoming the girls home at 11 o'clock. So I'm looking forward to saying hi to our cows again. They've been gone for about 10 days. And the news, undocumented aliens. Is that like undocumented drivers? Now, I believe that if an undocumented driver gets stopped by the police, he or she will be arrested for being an undocumented driver. Think about that. And then I heard at the top of the hour the term 4th of July. Now, we say the 4th of July, 4th of July, 4th of July, but we don't say the 25th of December, do we? We don't say, listen, we're going to get together for the 25th of December. We call that Christmas. The 4th of July is not the 4th of July. That's a day. We celebrate Independence Day. Independence Day, not the 4th of July. Today's class, radiation detection. We're going to talk about the realities. We're going to talk about the myths. Craig Douglas with us. He's a USAPrepares.com instructor. He's been to all of our Get Prepared Expos. He has the radiation detection equipment that was used during the civil defense days, those duck and cover days of the 1950s and the 1960s. And I remember that very, very vividly when I was in elementary school. Class, I'd like to suggest that you consider this. Please think for yourself. Do your own homework. Of course, turn off the TV. Read the internet. Learn as much as you can. Confirm everything that you hear for yourself. Always be honest and exemplify integrity at all times. Lead by example. At USAPrepares.com, our students are expected to become instructors. We expect you to go and teach others what you've learned. You're the best and brightest we have. We challenge you to lead the way. But remember, what happens next is up to you. Craig Douglas is with us, USAPrepares.com instructor. He's been at the meetups. He's been at the expo. He's been on the radio with us. Radiation detection. Welcome, Craig Douglas.
Hello there, Vince. I could add also to what you were just saying about 4th of July. In many parts of the country I go to, I think Cinco de Mayo is actually more celebrated than our Independence Day.
Wow. How do you respond to that? You know, and still stay on the air?
Well, I don't expect you to. I'm just pointing out that some parts of the country, it seems like it's much more prevalent in our own country's history.
Yeah, and this is our country, and Independence Day is absolutely extremely important. And if you think about it, there are many people who had pledged their lives, their fortunes, their honor toward what we have or what we had in this country before it was eroded and destroyed by the individual greed of politicians. And yesterday I said something like, politicians take what they don't own and promise it to others. That's what a politician is. That's different from a representative. A representative is, a representative is someone who works for the common good, and a politician is common, and he works for his own good. Craig, we're talking about radiation detection equipment, and you travel the country and you meet a lot of people. And when you come to the Get Prepared Expo, you have an exhibit that is yellow and black, and you've got these and blue and red, and you have these civil defense pieces of test gear that we seem to stop using many years ago. Can you tell us what that equipment was used for back in the 1950s and 1960s, why it was used, and then what happened to convince somebody to take that away from the public's use?
Okay, starting in the 40s, of course, when the first atomic bomb was dropped, there was a little bit of a fear amongst the American people because, of course, we didn't want the Russians, the Soviets, to get the bomb, right? So eventually, of course, they did. And if you look at history, the hidden history, you'll find that we actually helped them do that. But when the Russians finally got the bomb, there became much more fear all across this land that we needed to help protect ourselves from the Russians, from this Cold War that started, basically, an arms race. So it allowed our hidden leaders to escalate the making of these atomic devices, these bombs, to the point where at some point in the 50s and 60s, especially the early 60s, the American people became so, I'm not sure what word to use, but they were so oblivious to the fact of nuclear war anymore because the bombs kept getting bigger and bigger. There's so many of them that essentially, and the word mutual assured destruction, everybody thought it was hopeless to prepare for because we're all dead, bend over and kiss our butts goodbye. That's sort of the attitude that became after about the mid-60s when things started declining because, frankly, in 1962, that was the height of the scare. That was the Cuban Missile Crisis, and Americans really, really ramped up the efforts for civil defense. The civil defense program was at its height then. That's when they created these other fallout shelters, the signs that you see of public buildings. We had places to go in case we were attacked, protect us from the gamma rays. And inside all these shelters, we'd have biscuits and crackers and water barrels and all kinds of test equipment to test for radiation, especially high-level gamma radiation. And for those you've probably seen them in the movies, what people would commonly call Geiger counters, even though they're not Geiger counters. People would call them Geiger counters. They're yellow. They have a civil defense logo on them. They were mainly geared for detecting high-level gamma rays because that was the most dangerous. That was the stuff that was going to kill you. And they'd have medical kits in these shelters. They'd have cots. They'd have fans, bicycle-powered pumps for ventilation. And we were actually, our nation was actually somewhat prepared. Now, history shows we weren't anywhere near as prepared as the Soviets were in those days. But at least we were doing something. Because today now, fast-forwarding, 1965, 66, things started declining. They no longer taught the duck and cover in schools. Things kept getting less and less of a scare. American people were just oblivious to it, and we're all going to die. So why bother protecting ourselves? And so at some point, around 1985, the federal government decided we were no longer going to supply funding for this program because even though the shelters were already there and they already stockpiled with various things, these detectors required a calibration every 4 years. And so every 4 years, they'd have to send these devices in to get them professionally calibrated, make sure they're accurate. In 1985, around there, they stopped that. And then the shelters started declining. The federal government was no longer giving funding to the states for the shelters. And so it was up to the states to keep them going. The states didn't keep them going. And so they basically all disappeared into obscurity. Every once in a while, you'll hear stories about ones that discovered, and they still have some things in it, or else they've been looted or whatever. All this equipment has not been available to the public at public auction. I have not been able to buy any of these at public auction from governments since 2001. because in 2001, the supposed terrorist attack, I guess the idea was on one of the units, the model CDV 700, there was actually a radioactive test source on the side of the unit. And I guess the idea was I was going to take about 1 million of those and make a dirty bomb or something, even though they only made 260,000 of them. And so in 2001, they stopped the sales to the public, and so they could no longer get them to the public. Now, at that point, they're already almost 40 years old, and today all these devices are 50 years old, basically. And so it even though it sounds outrageous, they wouldn't even surplus them out. They were past their useful life, essentially. They're old electronics, even though they still work. Now, I have thousands of these units, thousands, literally thousands. And certain percentages of certain models are bad as I pulled them off the pallet and test them. So there's some that they do fail. I mean, these are 50 years old, but that's actually the American ingenuity of electronics and manufacturing back in the day. Shows that after 50 years, something electronic still working, I think is actually pretty remarkable. So these devices are out there in the private market. You'll find them on eBay. You'll find them all sorts of places, or you find them at my table, Preparedness Expo. And these devices can still be used. They don't necessarily need to be calibrated for civilian use. At least that's my opinion. And they're still useful to this day until they actually no longer function. But they're actually repairable by those who know how to fix electronics.
Craig, I have 3 of them, and I bought them many, many years ago, way before I met you, and I thought that they were important for me to have. I have the Model 715s, and I also bought from you something that I did not own, which was a CD, and I can't read the label. Looks like maybe something -138, which is a dosimeter. And I have actually 2 of them, and they have 2 different scales, Rentgens and Miller Rentgens. So can you also talk about those, what they are used for?
Okay, sure. And that's the mystery to most people when they come to my table. They look at these things, they see them, and they look kind of like little flashlights or little pens. They're yellow, just like the civil defense equipment. They have the civil defense logo on them. And they're little tubular things. And people look at them, and they're curious. They don't have any idea what they are. They put them back on the table unless I'm there to tell them. And you know, that's part of the ignorance. It's actually the most important thing on my table. But people don't know about them because I hear a commercial.
Well, I'll tell you what, Craig, hold on to that thought. And I've got a photograph of a young lady at the Get Prepared Expo a couple years ago, and she's holding one of these devices, looking up at the light, learning how to use it. Craig Douglas, Vincent Finelli, USAPrepares.com. There's a link to Craig on the website, page 1. We'll be right back. Class, we've got a meetup on Monday, 5:30, Ziggy's, Springfield, Missouri. Meetups are always free. This Monday's seminar is with John Reagan. He's the author of the Financial State of the Union. He's a USAPrepares.com instructor, and he's going to be leading the seminar on Monday. We're going to be talking about the unprepared prepper. The unprepared prepper. Who is that? Well, that's the person who has forgotten some basic things that he or she needs to have as supplies and as knowledge. So if you'd like to come to that, it's free. It's always free. Meetups are free. If you'd like to have dinner with us, you may. And information's on the website. And also the LED lighting kits are in stock. I've been prototyping some LED lighting for the farm and for the studio to run on 12 volts. Absolutely awesome. I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating. I offered to buy in bulk for the meetup group whatever they wanted. They ordered a 1/2 mile of LED lighting strips. It's now in stock. We have it, and I'm bringing it to the meetup. And also, I ordered enough so that we can make it available at the Get Prepared Expo. 12-volt lighting, absolutely the way to go for alternative lighting as compared with candles and kerosene lanterns. Craig Douglas is with us. We're talking about radiation detection. Craig, the survey meters and the dosimeters. We're talking about these little round, maybe 4-inch long, looks like about a 1/2 inch in diameter tubes that are painted yellow, and they have a civil defense logo on them. And I have a photo of a young lady at the Get Prepared Expo. She's holding it up to the light. You were teaching her what it is. The TV cameras love coming in to see these things. Why is that the most important piece of gear on your display?
Okay, first of all, it's less expensive than everything else, and it gives you the most real information about what the exposure is. Now, let me tell the difference between the survey meters and the dosimeters, or dosimeters, it's fine. The CDB 715, for instance, is what you have. It's called a radiological survey meter. The uneducated would call it a Geiger counter. It's not. A Geiger counter has a Geiger-Muller detection device and usually a wand with a cable, whereas the radiological survey meters have something called an ion chamber detector. Completely different. There's no probes. There's no cables. There's nothing that goes click, click, click. But that was actually the survey meter and the dosimeters were what all the emergency services had. They would never get a Geiger counter until they had those first, because, frankly, a Geiger counter for survival purposes is a toy, because it's actually 10,000 times more sensitive than the survey meter, which you have. In other words, the Geiger counter is 10,000 times more sensitive. Yeah, it's great to play around with, check things around the house. It makes the clicking sound. It's fun. But in a high-level event, the Geiger counter and the Geiger-Muller tube, when saturated or gets too much radiation, the needle will read zero, and it won't do anything at all. It'll appear that there's no radiation. And so that's why it's very dangerous to rely on a Geiger counter for survival purposes, because you could have a lot of radiation and not even know it. Now, the emergency services always had the survey meters and the dosimeters. Now, the reason most people think the survey meters are Geiger counters is, frankly, because of the movies. The movies do this. And the reason you've never seen a dosimeter is also because of the movies, because they never show them in the movies. Everything you think you know about radiation, if you learned it from the movies, it's wrong. And so that's what this class is all about. Now, the dosimeters, as Vince said, they're about 4 inches long. They're yellow. They're tubular. You look through them. You hold them up to light. You don't have to point them at a light source such as a light bulb. It could be a candle. It could be the sun. It could be a match. It could be anything. The light is only to read the gauge. It's not dependent on where you point it at to what the radiation source is. In other words, people see things on my table that's radioactive, and immediately they try to point the dosimeter at that thing to see what the level is. No, it doesn't do that. Back to the survey meters. They measure in Roentgens per hour, or you'll see on the scale, if anybody's got them, it'll say R/hour. And so it reads in Roentgens per hour. So in other words, if it was reading 1 on the scale, that means in 1 hour you'll have received 1 Roentgen. Okay, now the dosimeters, it's like the speedometer in your car, by the way. Miles per hour. This is Roentgens per hour. The dosimeters do something a little different. They measure also a high-level gamma radiation, but they're measuring in Roentgens, not Roentgens per hour. So they're measuring actually what you have actually received. So if you were at 1 Roentgen per hour on the survey meter, that means you take the dosimeter, put it in your pocket, and after about 1 hour, you would expect it to read 1 on the scale, 1 Roentgen. Now, the models that you
Craig,
have...
hold that thought.
Okay.
Craig, hold that thought. Going to another commercial. We'll be right back. Craig Douglas dispensing valuable information. We'll be back. Craig Douglas is with us, and we're talking about radiation detection equipment, survey meters, dosimeters. And Craig, in the studio, I keep some things that I think are pretty important in the studio with me. I have 2 dosimeters. I have a dosimeter charger, and I have a survey meter, along with some protection equipment. But I keep them in the studio with me. It's something that I consider important. And you were talking about the survey meters, which measure Roentgens per hour, and the dosimeter, which measures Roentgens. Can you continue that discussion, please?
Yeah, the easiest way to put this in an analogy for people to understand, the survey meters are your speedometer in your car, miles per hour, Roentgens per hour. The dosimeters are the odometer in your car. In other words, miles, Roentgens. So they have 2 different purposes. They measure the same thing. They still measure gamma radiation, but they come up with different numbers. So the dosimeter measures your accumulation of Roentgens over time, your accumulation of gamma radiation over time. That's the simplest way to put it. So they would, the person in charge of the shelter would take a reading on the survey meter, and at some point it would be low enough to where they could allow people to go outside safely enough, but they would issue somebody a dosimeter, and the person would say, well, I want you back to the shelter before that reads 30 or 50 or whatever they decide, whatever number they decide to pick. Now, just for people who have these devices already, I'll give you some numbers to help you understand what those numbers mean, because, frankly, if you're not trained on them, it's kind of hard to understand if you've received a dose that's bad or not. It's not something to panic just because your dosimeter moved necessarily. For instance, the one model you have, which is the CDV 742, now that's the one that goes to 200 Roentgen. Now, that's the most popular model. They made 1.6 million of those. That particular model goes to 200 Roentgen. Now, at about 50 Roentgens, up to about 50 Roentgens, most everyone should not experience any visible effects whatsoever. Now, that's not to say 10 years down the road you come up with a cancer or something, but the numbers I'm giving you are for civil defense purposes. We're talking nuclear war. So 50 was considered a safe exposure to where nobody would have any problems with radiation, at least in the short term. Now, if you took that all the way to 200 Roentgens, which is what that goes to, that's the top end of the scale, 200 Roentgens, at that point you would get sick. There's no question you'd get sick. However, you would not die at that rate. So your body can recover if given time taken out of the radiation. Your body can recover. So 0 to 200 Roentgen, that was the most popular model. There's actually 4 different models of civil defense yellow dosimeters. There's lots of others, ones that are civilian and medical. Going at the other end of the scale, the other one you have, which is the CDV 138. Now that one is 200 also, but it's 200 milliroentgens. That means it's 1,000 times more sensitive. So that one was never really used for civil defense purposes other than training. It wasn't used. It was considered way too sensitive to be used in any kind of high-level event because essentially it would top out right away and you wouldn't even have any idea how much radiation you received. Now, that 0 to 200 milliroentgen scale, the sensitive one, is, however, the scale that is extremely typical to be seen with people who work around radiation, such as medical X-ray technicians or power plant workers, nuclear power plant workers, or other professions where they have to wear these on a daily basis. They would set them to 0, and they would wear them throughout their shift. And at the end of their shift, they would read the dosimeter and make sure it was still a 0. If it encountered any radiation during their shift, well, then that would cause red flags to be thrown up, and they would go back and investigate how that person received the radiation. So OSHA requires that on certain occupations that are exposed to radiation. Mm-hmm. Other than one. There's one occupation that's exempt, and that happens to be the TSA people that work at airports, interestingly enough. They're not allowed to wear a dosimeter for some reason.
Craig, I've got a question for you. If I were to bring my dosimeter, the one that's 1,000 times more sensitive, the CDV 138, what would that read? Would that detect anything if I went by the TSA equipment?
Well, I don't know. I don't know the numbers. You'd have to try it. Frankly, though, if you went into the airport with it, and you would probably it would be removed from you and not allowed on the plane, I would guess. I don't know if they would allow it or not. I really haven't heard. The TSA equipment, I don't know what the true rates are. I haven't had a viable report to tell me that. So I don't know what the numbers would be. I have, however, loaned some of these dosimeters out to people who are, like, for instance, airline stewardesses who are traveling a lot. Now, they don't have to go through the same security checkpoints that you and I would have to go through. But I've had them wear a CDV model 742. That's the least sensitive one. And she wore it on an airplane for like a week, and it didn't read anything. It didn't go up at all. Now, if you wore a more sensitive one, I don't know. I have not experimented with that. Frankly, they're much more expensive. The 1,000 times more sensitive one, the one measures in milliroentgens, a medical grade one costs about $270 brand new. So they are much more expensive. So not too many people have them. Typically, I would sell my table for about $40 or $50, but these are the ones that are 50 years old. You got to understand. And so these devices could be used to check smaller levels. However, they're not meant to be used on a long-term basis. And I do understand you had a little experience that you wanted to relate to the audience about what happened with yours recently.
Yeah, Craig, I'd like to share with the audience. And by the way, Craig, did you attend any expos in Indianapolis back in the late 1990s or mid-1990s?
No.
Okay, the reason I ask is I was wondering if, maybe I did buy them from you back in the 1990s, so that was where my question was going. Okay, so, class, what I did, Craig was at the April 6th and 7th Get Prepared Expo, in Lebanon, Missouri, and he's going to be at the July 19th and 20th Expo, 19, 20, and 21 Expo, July in Lebanon, Missouri, coming up in a couple weeks. And when he was at the last Expo, I bought from him these two dosimeters, the CDV 138 and the CDV 742, and I also bought the charger to reset them. And one is the standard sensitivity, which you talked about, the 742, and then the other one is 1,000 times more sensitive. And I keep them, as I said, in the studio, and I noticed that the very sensitive model just jumped up very, very quickly to read about 17.5 or 18 milliroentgens. And so my question was, Craig, what does that mean? What does that tell us?
Okay, first of all, dosimeters were never intended to be used for long-term measurements. In other words, they really only were intended to be used for hours or maybe just a day or two. They weren't intended to try to sit on your shelf and measure how much radiation you're receiving over a long period of time, because they can drift. Even ones that are perfectly calibrated and everything, they can drift over time. And, okay, I could come up with some explanations, but what happened to yours? The more sensitive one, what you would expect it to, even though it's measuring gamma radiation, and we receive gamma radiation from the sun, so it will slowly go up, but it's still not a good measure because you don't know because of the drift. In other words, if you were to have it sitting on the shelf, I would expect, depending what the background radiation is in your area, because it varies all over the country, all over the world, you might only expect to see that to go up maybe either 0 or 1 or 2 Röntgens in a whole month's time. So, I'm sorry, milliroentgens. So that needle can move up from normal gamma radiation, but you wouldn't expect it to, and you can't get an accurate reading over a long period of time. Now, in the short-term duration, what happened to yours, where apparently it jumped around 17 or 18 milliroentgens in one day, there are some explanations that could happen. First of all, these are ion chamber devices. They are the way you adjust them is with the charger, and the charger adjusts it's basically a static charge, a high voltage static electricity, which allows you to move the needle back to 0, or you can move it anywhere you want, but the needle can be moved back, and it's by a static charge. So if there's a thunderstorm in the area, or a lightning strike, or some other static potential, it gets zapped if you walk around on carpet and you touch it, it can jump, and that is, it can jump significantly. It could even jump off scale. That's one way. However, it's not very common. Here's what I believe might have happened to yours, and I've seen this in some of my equipment, and I've heard stories. In fact, I could relate a story once when I was doing a show in D.C., the District of Criminals. There was a gentleman there that had two devices that had what they measure. They're called nuclears. I don't sell the nuclears. I sell another brand that's very similar. It measures. It's an electronic device. It's modern. And he had two of them that started alarming in the middle of the night. It was like 1 or 2 in the morning, and they both started alarming at the same time. And he was like, "Uh-oh," woke them up. What's going on? They turn on the TV, nothing. Radio, nothing. And they reset themselves, and they stopped alarming. In other words, they alarmed for a time, and they quit. They didn't know what was going on. They went back to bed. And the next day, they went to their local Congress critter or their politicians or whatever, and they were asking some questions to find out if they knew something happened last night. And it was apparent to them that they thought something, they could tell something was up, but they weren't being told what it was, and that was the end of it. What they believe happened, and it's very logical, is probably during the night, something was transported, either by rail or by truck, maybe even by plane. It was a very high-level radiological signature that made their devices activate. So it's very possible, and I don't know what happened to yours, but it's very possible that something was transported through the area that they didn't tell anybody about. And this happens. I talk to truckers who do say that. They tell me. They say, yeah, sometimes we transport this stuff. Yeah, there's escorts and all that, but they don't make any announcement on it. They do it at 3 in the morning when nobody sees it, so nobody panics, nobody protests. They just do it. And that's possibly what happened to your device. Maybe something was transported either by rail, unless there was a thunderstorm or you actually touched it and it got zapped with a static charge. That's what I believe. When you see a sudden increase like that, that's what I believe probably happened. Now, that level of 17 or 18 is nothing to worry about. If you top that all the way to 200 milliroentgens, that's still only, if I do my math right, it's still only 1/20th, or I'm sorry, 1/20th of a Roentgen, or 1/200th of a Roentgen. It's still a very small amount of radiation to where it's not a danger. In fact, even if you top that one out, certainly doesn't mean you're going to die. It's just a fairly low level. It's just a little beyond normal.
Craig Douglas, USAPreparedness.com instructor. He's going to be at the Get Prepared Expo, July 19, 20, and 21. You're going to get a chance to meet him. He and I were trained to think like Navy SEALs with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. And he's going to be presenting seminars on radiation detection. You need to meet Craig Douglas. We'll be right back. Craig Douglas is with us. ForbiddenKnowledge.info. ForbiddenKnowledge.info. There's a link on the website, usaprepares.com, page 1. And there's also there's a post that will show you the radiological survey meters we're talking about. And at the bottom of the page, Craig Douglas and radiation detection equipment in the section where the instructors are at the bottom of page 1, usaprepares.com. You'll be able to click right to Craig Douglas's website. And Craig, I was concerned about knowing what's going on versus not knowing what's going on, and that's why I purchased the equipment that I have, the survey meters and the dosimeters. And so if someone were interested in buying some kind of equipment, what do you recommend they start with, and how much is it going to cost?
Well, if they have very limited funds, as I said, the dosimeters are actually some of the most important things on the table, because you could actually take, let's say you could only afford what I sell for $40. I sell a working set. I sell one dosimeter with a charger, a working set with the original manual, and then so $40 you get a working set. Now, the way you could use that, if that's all you had, is you could take that dosimeter, set it to 0. Then if there's an event that happens, you take it outside. You put it outside, you leave it there. And then you leave it there for 12 hours or a day or however long you want to measure. You go back into your shelter, underground, basically, if there's a big question mark about what's going on. Then you go back out and you retrieve it, and then you read it, and you find out if it's still a 0, well, then there's not a problem. But if it's reading something, you have to make the determination. That's what it would have received in the previous period, whether 12 hours or a day or whatever. So you could use it as a delayed reaction as a survey meter, because the survey meters are more expensive. They cost $60 for the survey meters I have. So, and a working set, a complete working set with a radiological survey meter, a dosimeter, all the books and manuals and everything, that costs about $115 for the set that every single agency would have. Every school would have them, fallout shelters, police, fire department. All the emergency services would have at least that. Does not include a Geiger counter, because they would not have a Geiger count as a bare minimum. So for about $115, you get the whole thing. Right now, probably I should have some left. The next expo, when I'm there, I'll actually be able to give away one bonus dosimeter with the sets, including the set for $40 I mentioned. That's because I have a bunch of them right now. I have about 100 of them that are pretty banged up, scratched up, but they're still functional. But I can't sell them when they're all they look really bad like that, because the customer wants something that looks really nice. Even though these are already more than 50 years old, people want something that looks nice. So if I have some left, I can offer that. But I will be at the next Get Prepared Expo, and I guess I'm speaking as well. We'll be able to help anybody there that wants to come by.
You sure are speaking. You are a huge hit. And Craig, as I said before, as soon as the TV cameras come into the Get Prepared Expo, the first thing they do is they go, oh, there's a radiation equipment, and they zoom over to see you. It's really neat to watch this, and it's really neat to watch people who have never seen this equipment. They're fascinated with what you've got to offer. So, class, I own this equipment. I purchased it, and I pay what you pay. I really do. So I bought the equipment from Craig. Craig, I think it was about $90 or $100 that I spent with you at the last expo, because I wanted this ultra-sensitive dosimeter. Now, do you still have any of those left?
Oh, yeah. I have about 10,000 dosimeters in stock.
Okay, but I'm talking about the model CDV138, the Miller-Röntgen model.
I have less of those, but yes, I do have quite a number of them. And some of them, if anybody has those, you'll notice that it doesn't look very good. It's all banged up, scratched up. That's because they did use them a lot for training. There aren't too many out there that look really nice, but I do have some that look nice, and I have some that look kind of ratty. And those I generally mark down about $10 less. And so if you want to save a little bit, ask me if I have one that looks a little bad, but it still works, and you can save a little bit.
There you go. Craig Douglas, he's going to be at the expo. Hey, Craig, thanks so much for being with us today. I really appreciate it. And if you'd like to see Craig Douglas, he's at the Doomsday Expo right now. Right now at the Doomsday Expo. You can meet him right there. Class coming up. Johnny Delirious, we're going to talk about dome homes, how to build one, how they work, and how are they safer. We'll be right back. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? This is hour number 2 of USAPrepares.com. Johnny Delirious is with us. We're going to be talking about monolithic domes. And some of us are concerned about the weather. Some of us are concerned about flying projectiles through the air as a result of tornadoes. And we have our share of weather-related problems here in the Ozarks. There's the Joplin tornado, the Moore, Oklahoma tornado, and we had one in Branson. So it's not just the wind. The wind is one problem. It can blow down doors and blow in windows, but the flying things through the air, that's my biggest concern. 2x4s, car hoods, trees, limbs, patio furniture, steel tables, those kinds of things, and the things that we have, throughout our property. Those are the things that kind of worry me. Johnny Delirious is with us. Welcome, Johnny Delirious.
Thank you, Vince. I'm glad to be here.
Johnny, when you come to the Get Prepared Expo, you are a big hit. You are, I don't know what kind of vitamins you take, but you are always upbeat and positive, and it's just great to be around you.
Well, thank you, Vince. There's a lot of people trying to make our life miserable, and I'm just trying to contribute into the good things in life. I mean, there's so much to be grateful for, and there's no reason to let the bad guys get you down, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, so, you're absolutely right. And, I was talking with Shayne, our producer, today, and I was kind of describing some of the faculty here at USA Prepares, how I was indicating that we were not really good at taking direction. We are all independent thinkers, but we all agree that our freedoms are being diminished. We don't like it, and we just don't react too well to it. So today we're going to talk about monolithic types of structures and why you should consider one. And I was really thinking seriously last night about 2x4s flying through the air, 2x6s, 2x8s, timbers, beams, trees, pipes, and would it be easy for a 2x4 to go right through the side of a house and right through the other side if it were picked up by a tornado? And the answer is absolutely. And is it possible for a tornado to just lift up the roof right off a house or peel the entire side off a house? Johnny, I was in Joplin right after the tornado. I was there the next day. And I saw a house where it looked like one of those children's doll houses where you could see through the side of it and place the furniture inside, reach your hand in there and decorate it. The side of the house was ripped right off. But you could see the bedroom. You could see the bedspread on the bed. It looked like totally untouched. But the whole side of the house was ripped off, but everything inside seemed to be pretty much okay. You would think that the bed, the dresser, all that stuff would be ripped out, on and moved, into the front yard or something. But no, everything was fine in the house, but the side was gone. It was like it was peeled off. Have you ever seen anything like that?
Well, I have, and where I live in the country south of Dallas, it's out in the country. There's less than 300 people where I live. It's about 4 miles or 5 miles away from where Willie Nelson got his start. The place is still there. It looks the same, and some of these places, haven't changed, and the roof has fallen in. But then we've had tornadoes where that actually happened, and it's just left there because, some of these people don't have the money to change it or fix it or whatever. But when I moved into my monolithic home, and I like to refer to monolithic really from now on as the safest house, because I sleep at night. When we've had tornadoes come through here, there's been some damage, but I'm okay, and I help my neighbors. And if there is flying debris, if you have good windows, there is absolutely no way that it's going to damage. If you live in the safest house, the monolithic dome, the safest house, there's just no way that you're going to suffer any damage, especially if you have storm windows, and that's just a little extra expense. So, you might as well prepare for the worst, and then whatever happens, you're okay.
Johnny, you were on the air with me, and we were talking about some really cold days, and you've got to turn the heat on in that monolithic dome, the safest house that you live in. And you were describing this heating system that you bought. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I love it. The heating system. I love that. Well, my dome is 24 feet in diameter. The living space is just under 300 square feet. Okay, so I've got it divided, and I have my bedroom on one side and the kitchen and living area on the other side. But my heating system, actually, I've got 2 units, okay, in my heating system. They're both the same. They have, just a little 3-foot cord. I paid $12. One's a little sunbeam heater. I paid $12. The other one, I think, cost me $16 from Walmart or something. But they're both the same. I mean, they're this little 6-inch by 8-inch tall heater that secretaries use in the office for just to keep their legs warm. And so I keep one on the front side of my dome and one in my bedroom. And I never probably ever turn them both on at once, and I never turn them all the way up. So my power bill, it just doesn't go over $80. I float around $50 to $70 depending. Now, in the midsummer here in Texas, it can, right now, the last few days, it's been over 100. I usually run one air conditioner, and the air conditioners I have are 5,000 BTU. I paid $95 for one at Walmart. I think the other one was a General Electric that's 510,000 BTUs. I think I paid $105 for that one. I never, even on 100-degree days, I never run both air conditioners. However, when it hits over 108, I do turn them both on. So there you have it. I just, I guess it's called minimum maintenance to keep myself comfortable. I love it.
So your entire heating system, cooling system, HVAC system is less than $300.
It's less than $250, really. I mean, when you consider one heater is $12, the other heater is $16. One was $95, and the other air conditioner, I think I paid $105 for that. So, yeah, it's less than $250. And really, it's like if one breaks, I just get another one, but they haven't broken yet. And so, hey, when you're operating on a real low level of expenditure, it doesn't take much, to get back up to speed. And for me, the safest house, the monolithic dome is the safest house. It's the minimal energy user. So whatever, if you were to go off the grid, it doesn't take much, electricity to put you into real comfort. So a few solar cells, maybe a wind generator, and boom, you're off the grid. I mean, it doesn't take that much because it doesn't need that much to draw because you're saving about 80%. You're about 80% efficiency compared to most conventional homes. That's what I really like. Plus, you're safe, and that in of itself is the best. One thing I like to do, Vince, is just tell everybody, if they haven't seen our video, The Safest House, just go to thesafesthouse.com, thesafesthouse.com, and you can watch all about how the monolithic dome, the safest house, goes up against tornadoes, goes up against hurricanes, fires, all that, earthquakes, everything. It shows this documentary. We have part 1 available. So that can give your listeners a real bird's eye view in some real factual matter because I live in these and I built these, and I also work in the class when we give our classes 4 times a year. So we'll teach you how to build one, or we'll build one for you, that kind of deal. So either way, you can achieve total safety. And see, when you're talking about flying projectiles, we're talking about all flying projectiles. Some of them are made of lead. And so you're safe from those too. I'm a master survivor. I don't preach any particular dogma except, hey, I want to stick around for a while, and I'm a firm believer in keeping all my parts.
Johnny, I saw an image of a 30-06 being shot at a monolithic dome. And I'll tell you what, when we come back, let's talk about what was involved in repairing this monolithic dome when it was shot by a 30-06 rifle at close range. Johnny Delirious, Vin Finelli. Johnny's a master survivor, and there's a link on page 1 on the website. Johnny Delirious is with us, and we're talking about the safest house. I just want to mention, on Monday, we've got a meetup. And for those of you who ordered the LED lighting kits, the emergency lighting kits, and the retrofit kits for your houses to run on 12 volts, they're in. And I'm going to bring them, and I'm also going to bring them to the Get Prepared Expo. So they'll have plenty, if you're interested in very, very, very inexpensive 12-volt lighting that will light up a whole room where you can forget the candles, forget the kerosene lanterns, and you can run your house on your car battery or your truck battery or solar power. Unbelievably bright. And I've got the prototype built, and I'm going to deploy it throughout the entire farmhouse. So that's Monday. And also John Reagan's going to be with us on Monday, and he's going to be talking about the unprepared prepper. He's the author of the Financial State of the Union. He's a USAPrepares.com instructor. And who will you meet at the Get Prepared Expo? Well, Dr. Joel Wallach, Dr. Norman Shealy, Dr. Julie Pennick, Sheriff Richard Mack, John Moore, Joyce Riley, Sam Bushman, Craig Douglas. Of course, Johnny Delirious is going to be there. He's always there. And I'm going to be updating the website over the weekend with seminars and exhibitors. So we're going to have seminars, workshops, exhibits, and all designed to help you prepare and survive. The workshops we're going in depth more. They're going to be they're becoming more in-depth rather than just survey and overviews. And that's July 20th and 21st in Lebanon, Missouri. 2 banquet survival dinners, freeze-dried guys cooking, $8 if you'd like to meet your instructors. We're only going to be able to accommodate 280 to 300 people at the banquet dinners. $8 freeze-dried guys cooking. And how much does this all cost? Well, a 3-day pass discounted on the internet is $18 or $10 a day at the door. Children are admitted free up to 12, but if you have a large 12-year-old, that's fine with us. You know, there's no one's going to ask for proof of anything. And if you can't afford the entry to the Get Prepared Expo, just tell us, and we're going to let you in for free. It's not a free event. We're trying to cover our costs and break even on this, as we always try to do. And I think we're getting to the point where we're going to break even. This is my church. This is my church of physical preparedness. It's a non-denominational, non-denominational, but it is the church. I'm calling it a church, not religious at all, but we do try to teach physical preparedness, and we try to teach honesty and integrity. So that's what you get at the Get Prepared Expo. And you know, all the expos that are out there, I'm getting emails every day. People, they're telling us that they have the largest preparedness expo in the country. There's only one that's the largest preparedness expo in the country. There's only one. And you'll see it if you come to the Get Prepared Expo. And that's July 19, 20, and 21, right here in Lebanon, Missouri. Johnny Delirious is with us. And Johnny, I was thinking about that 30-06 that was shot at one of your monolithic domes. What happened? How'd you fix that?
Oh, yeah, we had some people challenge us, and they had a couple of 45s and, 9 millimeters, and so they, well, let's get this 30-06 out. So he shot the dome with the 30-06. Now, as you know, the dome has the foam protecting the outside, and, of course, the concrete's on the inside. So, yes, the bullet did penetrate the foam that covers the outside, but then, of course, it stopped when it hit the steel and the concrete on the inside. So, yes, there was a small hole on the outside, and on repeated firing of the 30-06 in the same place, there's like bam, 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 2 or 3 in a row, there was a little bit of concrete that chipped off from the inside, just because, when you fire in the same place, that's a huge assault. It didn't penetrate, but there was a little bit of chipped concrete from the inside. And I'm talking about, like less than the palm of your hand. But it didn't penetrate. And so all it was cosmetic, a little paint, and no one knows anything happened. Everybody was safe.
That's why it's called the safest house. Class, if you want to see one, if you want to see the video, it's about 8 minutes long. Page 1, usaprepares.com. Johnny Delirious, the safest house. Click on it. It'll take you right to his website. Johnny Delirious is with us, and we're talking about concrete dome shelters with foam insulation. Johnny, news just now, Death Valley, temperatures expected to hit 129 degrees. Las Vegas, where Frank Underhill resides, 117. Phoenix, 119. Those are pretty high temperatures. And a traditional composite roof. I've taken a non-contact thermometer, and I've aimed it at our roof, and I know that our roof in the farmhouse has hit 158 degrees easily in the direct sunlight, and that's not when it's really, really hot out. So these temperatures are really, really high. Going forward, Johnny Delirious, not only should we consider the safety of the impact resistance of the monolithic dome, but what about thermal? What about staying alive in these extreme temperatures? What do you think?
Well, when you have the round shape, there's so many advantages that, most people, that everybody's thinking square, but let's face it, that technology is, 300 or 400 years old. It really hadn't changed. The only thing that's changed is maybe the tools to put them together. I mean, they didn't have power saws back in 1820, but really, it's still built out of wood. And frankly, I mean, if it's over 100 degrees and I go walking, my shoes get so hot that, just to go, I'd walk on the grass instead of walking on the road. I mean, it wears out the soles of my shoes so fast. Well, what is it doing to your wood roof? Or even if you have a shingle roof. I mean, some people that have paid more money, they have a ceramic roof. But when you've got the wood underneath, it's still the same thing. What you have with the safest house in the monolithic dome is you have that protection on the outside. Not only the foam and when I saw that you have the video how to build the safest house. That gives you an idea of exactly how we build it. We even teach you how to build it if you don't want us to build it. But the best thing about the round shape that I was getting to is it's a great water catcher. So we use our domes to collect water when it rains. You also can plant, if you're in extreme conditions, like you're talking about in Las Vegas or Phoenix, Arizona, or whatever, you can easily create a green roof. Some people actually use, how you make fences out of that chain link kind of fence. It's cheap. I mean, really. I mean, you can cover your roof with that and then grow ivy and plants on it, water them at the bottom to keep them watered, and you never get the heat on the structure. Of course, if you have stucco on your structure, that's basically stone. That's like concrete. We found the best coating is this epoxy composite. We have a special formula. It's not that expensive. But we have a 30-year test on one dome, and it hasn't broken down or cracked it at all. The thing about concrete is if you do concrete stucco, concrete will crack. It has micro-cracking. Ask anybody that pours concrete, there's always going to be micro-cracking. But when you have a thin sheet covering the dome, you don't want micro-cracking after 10 or 12, 15 years. So it's best to go with this epoxy composite that we have to cover, and then just grow plants on top. If you're in extreme condition, you'll never get the heat from the sun. And I know people that grow plants that provide food on their dome. So, every year they have cucumbers and squash, even melons growing all over their dome. And why not use the sun for what it's there for and feed yourself at the same time?
Johnny, I really like the idea of the ivy growing on the dome, insulating the dome from the heat, and also kind of camouflaging the dome from those who might be looking at it. And what would that be? Is that a pile of dirt that ivy's growing on? Is it some trees? Actually, what is it? So I like it. I really do. Let's build one right now. Can you take us through starting the construction with the foundation, with the pad? Can you take us through that? And by the way, Johnny, can you have a basement with a dome home?
Well, we have a lot of people that design. Everybody can do it the way they want, and some people do build a basement first and then put the dome over it. So yes, you can.
Okay.
It's all in the design, and that's part of the feasibility study. That's the first step, is to do a feasibility study and exactly what you want. It will help you with that. And even if you build your own dome, we can help you with the feasibility study so you can have exactly what you want. And all those blueprints come with it. All the renderings for the electrician, the plumbing, everything, all those blueprints come with it. So whatever part you do or we do or whatever, or you can have somebody do the whole thing outside of us and we still can provide you with those feasibility studies. So, yeah, you start with the foundation, and it's basically like most conventional homes. It's concrete and rebar steel. And in this case, in most cases, it'll be round. And I saw up on your website, you have how learn to build the safest house, and you can see that after you finish the show and see exactly what I'm talking about. So the conduit, according to your house plans, is coming through the foundation, and once that's done, the rebar is in the foundation, just like a normal foundation, and then the airform is like a balloon. It's tied to the foundation itself, and we have ways to do that. We insert rebar to tie it to that. So by the time we blow it up like a balloon, it's all blown up, and the dome is actually there, but you work on the inside. So the balloon is the dome. You work on the inside. You spray the foam first, and then mount the rebar, and then spray the shotcrete. In each case, you layer it out so, it's thick and it's strong. By the time the concrete sets, of course, you can turn the air fans off that blew up the balloon, and then the dome is basically done, and it's tied to the concrete rebar because that is the last 4 or 5 coats on the inside is the shotcrete, and that's concrete. And by the time it's layered out, you have a wall, in most cases between, 8 inches and a foot or 14 inches wide. If it's a bigger dome, it's, of course, thicker walls. So the outside is that airform. And just the airform itself will withstand, we have 30 years testing of airform material that we use. So even if you don't put any stucco or anything else on the outside, we have a lot of domes that just have the airform, that will, be resistant to the elements. It won't crack or leak or anything like that. So it's done. And it's monolithic because the concrete walls are tied to the concrete foundation. It's all one piece, monolithic. So that's, hence the name. And it ain't going anywhere, Vince. Once you build this, it's going to last for centuries. So that's the advantage of having this. You can leave it for family and grandkids and everything else, and it will always be there. And why not? Why live in a conventional home disguised as a cardboard box? Because it is a cardboard box when you have a storm coming and the tornado hits, it's gone. And why not have a monolithic home where you will be safe on the inside? Everybody's running to a shelter, but, the monolithic dome is a shelter. So in many cases, you can get FEMA, if you're building a big dome, you can get FEMA to pay 75% of that cost. And that's the case on the coast of Texas, and I'm just speaking from what I know. I know that there's domes in Florida that they paid 65%, but in the coast of Texas, the monolithic structure is a stormproof shelter. FEMA will pay 85% of it, and we just finished a couple of gyms down for high schools on the coast of Texas. And, it took a bit of doing, but after a year or so, they got it all done. FEMA paid 75% of it. Now, when there's a hurricane that comes, the whole town goes to the local gym, which is a monolithic structure, safest. And so once you build it for yourself, you don't have worries that other people have. I'm telling you that right now.
Johnny, as you were talking about this, I was thinking down the road on our farm, it's about 3/4 of a mile from the farmhouse, we have a dairy barn. It's called a Grade A dairy barn. It's conventional. It kind of looks like a Dutch style barn. Has a lot of roofing on it. And a storm came by and high winds and just ripped part of the roof off. So I called our insurance company. Guy comes out and he says, okay, I'll submit the claim. And I'm thinking, I'm paying for insurance for all these years, hardly ever have any claims. And I decide, I'm gonna put this claim in. My insurance doubles, okay? Over a period of 3 years, my insurance doubles. And I'm thinking, yeah, and I'm annoyed with my insurance company because they're really socking it to me. So here's the question. That wouldn't happen if I had a dome, for number one. But number two, what about insurance? What do insurance companies think of these domes?
Well, Vince, it's like so many people are ingrained and scratching each other's backs. And insurance and lumber companies and everything else, they don't like monolithic domes. I'm telling you right now.
Hey, let's talk about that when we come back. Insurance companies and monolithic domes. Johnny Delirious, he's going to be at the expo. We'll be right back. Class, I'd just like to share a thought with you. I have a chicken who lives with us and hangs out by the back door, and she's a couple years old, and she was at death's door. And I had a bottle of Kyani Nitro Extreme, and I got all the Kyani I could get out of it, and there's like maybe a drop or two left at the bottom of the bottle. And I used some Berkey water, and I filled the bottle up with Berkey water, shook it up, and I decided to give this chicken like a quarter of a teaspoon of this very, very dilute Kyani Nitro Extreme to see if it would help her. A couple days later, maybe 3 days later, she is coming back, and it looks like she's going to make it. Unbelievable. I just wanted to share that with you. So I'll let you know more about that experiment. We'll talk about it with Dr. Shealy. That's Kyani Nitro Extreme. If you want information about that, I take it. It's on the website on the side page 1. Johnny Delirious is with us. Oh, by the way, Dr. Shealy's going to be experimenting with Kyani Nitro Extreme at the expo. So if you'd like to try it and see if it reduces your blood pressure the way it does for me, he's going to be there, and he'll help you understand how that works. So that's at the Get Prepared Expo. Johnny Delirious, insurance companies, how would they address fire insurance, hail insurance, and wind damage with a monolithic dome? What would they have to say about that?
Well, there's really nothing to cover. So it's like I tell them, if all I want is liability in case someone tries to sue me for slipping on a banana peel or something inside my dome. There's fire. They can't be destroyed by fire. If they go to the thesafesthouse.com, they can see exactly how the monolithic dome is resistant to all these things. And insurance is good, but let's face it, they're kind of in cahoots with all the rest of them, the building guilds, suppliers, the lumber people, and everything else. What I'm trying to do right now, and I thank you for putting the Safest House Workshop up on your website, I'm trying to get more builders involved with building domes because they can build those domes. Once you build it, once you own the home and everything, you really don't have the insurance. In my opinion, it's almost like a choke collar hanging over your financial checkbook because you got to keep paying. You got to have it. It's kind of like car insurance. You just got to do it. But with a monolithic dome, you don't really have to have that because it is a stormproof and fireproof structure. So, it's even authorities use it to guard, when they want to stay out of the harm's way. So I am calling all builders, if they want to get involved with building and getting more jobs, right now is the time. And they can start by going to your website and watching how to build your own safest house. And if they come through our course, they can be certified in to building the monolithic dome. And you really don't need insurance. once it finishes. Not like nothing financially hanging over your back. You might as well not spend the money when you don't have to worry about disaster.
Johnny, I was thinking years ago I had some investment properties and I had some tenants in apartment units, and they would get trashed. And I remember saying to a realtor, can you show me an apartment building that I can buy that's in stainless steel inside and outside? And she looked at me like, boy, that'd be kind of nice because you could just hose it out, you know, and after the tenants demolish it. Well, that really is the case with the monolithic dome, isn't it? If you had a problem tenant, you could just hose it out, can't you?
Absolutely. We had one guy go through our class. He sold his trailer court and he started a monolithic dome court. So if we had a tenant that, you know, caught her bed on fire, burned her dresser. I mean, everything she had in it burned up. But she was evicted, and we hosed it out, repainted it, and just put a new bed and dresser in it, and away you go.
There you go, Johnny Delirious. Hey, thanks so much for being with us, Johnny. We're going to see you at the Get Prepared Expo, July 19, 20, and 21 in Lebanon, Missouri. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you. Thanks so much, Johnny Delirious.